a human mechanic sent to recover a 700-year-old lost ship, unaware of the secrets it holds. As he grew older, his fascination became a profession. He became a marine mechanic, a person who could repair and restore ships of all sizes, from small fishing boats to massive cargo vessels. His colleagues respected him not only for his skill but also for his patience. Elias could spend hours studying a machine, understanding its heartbeat, its weaknesses, and the rhythm of its operation. Yet, despite his talent, he was not a man who sought attention. He preferred the quiet hum of engines to the loud praise of people. It was on a cloudy Monday morning when Elias' life took an unexpected turn. He had been in his small workshop near the harbor, the scent of oil and salt in the air, when his phone rang. It was an unusual number, one that didn't belong to any of his regular clients. Hesitant but curious, he answered. "Mr. Romero?" the voice on the other end said. It was calm but carried authority. "We have a project that requires your expertise. It is unlike anything you have worked on before." Elias raised an eyebrow, a mixture of curiosity and caution stirring inside him. "I'm listening," he said. "There has been a discovery off the coast of Portugal. Sonar scans have revealed a massive vessel submerged for over 700 years. It appears to be intact. We need someone who can assess and restore mechanical systems, someone who can make the impossible possible. We want you on the team." For a moment, Elias was silent. He had worked on sunken ships before, but nothing even close to something that had been lying at the bottom of the ocean for 7 centuries. His mind raced with questions. What kind of vessel could survive underwater for so long? Could its materials even be strong enough to handle modern recovery methods? And most importantly, what secrets might it hold? "I need some time to consider," Elias replied finally. "Time is limited. If you accept, arrangements will be made immediately. We need to act before any natural currents or storms shift the vessel further into the seabed." "Think carefully, Mr. Romero," the voice said before ending the call. Elias hung up, staring at his workshop filled with tools, parts, and memories of his past work. The decision weighed heavily on him. Part of him wanted to say no, to stay in the comfort of his routine, where the worst problems were stubborn engines and leaky pipes. Yet another part of him, the part that loved history, mystery, and machines, felt an irresistible pull. A 700-year-old ship, the chance to touch history, to understand a machine lost to time, was an opportunity that came once, if ever, in a lifetime. After hours of thought and pacing, Elias made his decision. He would go. He packed light but took every tool he considered essential: wrenches, gauges, measuring devices, and a notebook to record observations. He left his small harbor behind, boarding a flight that would take him across continents to a team assembled for a mission unlike any other. The team greeted him at the port near Lisbon. Scientists, historians, divers, and engineers had been assembled, each an expert in their field. Elias immediately noticed the mix of excitement and tension in the air. Everyone knew the risks, though no one could predict the challenges they would face. The vessel was ancient, delicate, and hidden beneath layers of silt and rock. Any wrong move could destroy parts of it forever. Elias was briefed in detail. The ship was believed to be a merchant vessel from the 14th century, its hull remarkably preserved beneath the cold waters. The team had used advanced sonar and imaging to map its structure, but they could not see inside. No one knew exactly what the ship carried, how its mechanical parts had survived, or whether it had any traps, hazards, or unknown technologies. The uncertainty thrilled Elias. To him, a machine, even 1 century old, had logic, patterns, and functions that could be understood with patience. Yet, he sensed that this was no ordinary machine. The first day at the site, Elias watched the divers descend into the blue depths, their lights piercing through the darkness like stars in the night sky. He felt a mix of admiration and nervousness. The sea could be unforgiving, and at that depth, even the slightest mistake could become catastrophic. As the divers returned with their initial reports, Elias listened carefully. They described the ship as massive, with its wooden frame surprisingly intact and its shape almost regal, despite the centuries underwater. Strange metal fittings were embedded in the hull, and the carvings along the sides suggested it had belonged to a wealthy and influential owner. Elias couldn't wait to see it himself. The next morning, he donned his diving gear. The water was cold and heavy, pressing against him as he descended. He felt the familiar weight of responsibility and excitement as the vessel came into view. It was larger than he had imagined, with an air of quiet dignity. Fish swam lazily around its hull, and the sunlight filtering through the water gave it an ethereal glow. He ran his hands over the surface, careful not to damage it. The wood felt strong yet delicate, like it had been sleeping for centuries. Elias traced the lines of the hull, noting areas where mechanical components might have existed. He imagined the crew who had once navigated this ship, the storms they had faced, the lives they had led. History seemed alive here, hidden beneath layers of water and time. Back on the surface, Elias met with the lead historian, Dr. Sophia Almeida. She explained that the ship might hold artifacts, documents, or even mechanisms that were unknown to modern technology. "This vessel is not just a piece of history," she said. "It could rewrite what we know about engineering in the 14th century." Elias nodded thoughtfully. As a mechanic, he understood how knowledge could survive in machines. Gears, pulleys, and engines were silent storytellers, each part a clue to the mind that created it. Yet he also knew that age, water, and pressure could hide or destroy these stories. Patience, care, and ingenuity would be essential. The team spent the following days preparing equipment for recovery. Cranes, pumps, and stabilization tools were brought in. Elias inspected every piece, checking for durability and compatibility. Each decision mattered. One miscalculation could destroy the fragile vessel or endanger the lives of the team. As preparations continued, Elias felt a strange sense of anticipation mixed with unease. He couldn't explain it, but something about the ship felt alive. He had worked on machines before, but none had seemed to watch him back, to whisper secrets beneath the hum of their mechanisms. He shook off the feeling, focusing on the task at hand. Machines required logic, not superstition. On the night before the recovery operation, Elias walked along the pier, staring at the dark waters where the ship lay hidden. The wind was gentle, carrying the scent of the sea. He thought about the journey ahead, about the unknown challenges waiting in the depths. He thought about the people who had sailed this ship centuries ago, and about the team who would now touch a piece of history. The weight of responsibility pressed on him, but it was a weight he welcomed. Elias returned to his quarters, organizing his tools, double-checking his equipment, and making notes. He knew the next day would test every skill he had, every lesson learned from decades of experience. He tried to sleep, but found his mind racing with possibilities, discoveries, obstacles, and the secrets the ship might hold. As dawn broke, Elias stood on the deck of the support vessel, watching the first divers enter the water. The team was ready, the machines were in place, and the ship waited below, silent and patient. Elias took a deep breath, feeling the hum of excitement in his veins. Today he would step into history. Today he would face the unknown. And as he prepared to descend into the depths, he couldn't shake the feeling that the ship held more than just wood and metal. It held stories, mysteries, and secrets that had waited centuries to be uncovered. And so, with steady hands and a mind sharpened by years of experience, Elias Romero began his journey into the deep, unaware that the 700-year-old vessel beneath him would challenge everything he knew about machines, history, and human ingenuity. The adventure had begun. Elias Romero adjusted his diving mask and checked the oxygen levels in his tank once more. Today was the day he would descend to the ancient ship for the first time as the lead mechanic responsible for its recovery. The morning air was crisp, and the sun reflected off the water, creating sparkling patterns that danced across the deck. The crew worked quietly but efficiently, each person absorbed in their responsibilities. Divers checked their gear, technicians monitored equipment, and historians reviewed old maps and notes about the ship. Elias felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. He had prepared for this moment for weeks, yet nothing could truly prepare someone for stepping into history itself. With a firm nod to the dive supervisor, Elias descended into the water. The temperature dropped quickly as he went deeper, and the sunlight above grew fainter. The deeper he went, the more the ocean felt like another world, silent, vast, and almost sacred. After several minutes he saw it, the ship. Its hull was massive, stretching wider and longer than he had imagined. Sediment had formed a thin layer over its surface, and barnacles clung stubbornly to the wood and metal. Yet, even beneath the weight of centuries, the ship appeared intact, a frozen monument to a world long gone. Elias' heart raced as he approached the bow. He ran his gloved hand across the hull, feeling the texture of the ancient wood. It was rough and splintered in some places, but in others the grain was smooth, preserved by layers of sediment and cold water. The carvings along the side of the ship caught his eye, intricate patterns, symbols he did not recognize, perhaps intended to honor a noble family or a religious figure. He made careful notes in his waterproof notebook, recording every detail. Even after centuries underwater, the craftsmanship was extraordinary. The divers spread out around him, setting up lights and cameras. Ilias directed them to focus on areas he suspected contained mechanical components. A section near the stern where ropes and pulleys were still partially visible, the remains of a rudder mechanism, and a small enclosed room that might have housed the ship's early navigational instruments. Every piece of metal, every wooden beam could hold a clue to the ship's secrets. As Ilias examined the stern, he noticed something unusual. Small metal components, unlike anything he had seen in medieval shipbuilding, protruded from the wooden beams. They were shiny in the diver lights, almost as if they had resisted corrosion despite the centuries underwater. He carefully scraped away some of the sediment and barnacles, revealing small gears and hinges. His pulse quickened. These were not ordinary fittings. They suggested a level of mechanical sophistication far ahead of the ship's time. "Ilias, come look at this," called one of the divers, pointing toward the deck. Ilias swam over. The diver had uncovered a section of the hull with what appeared to be a hatch, reinforced with bronze fittings. It was tightly sealed by layers of rust and sediment. Using specialized underwater tools, Ilias began the careful process of loosening the fastenings. He worked slowly, aware that too much force could destroy the hatch or damage the surrounding wood. Finally, with a small, careful pull, the hatch opened slightly. Cold water rushed in, carrying centuries of silt into the surrounding area. Ilias shined his light inside and gasped. Inside the compartment were rows of small barrels and chests, many still intact. He could see fragments of parchment, metal tools, and other artifacts that had survived the centuries. His hands shook slightly with excitement. Each item was a piece of history, a message from people who had lived, worked, and dreamed long before him. Over the next several hours, Ilias and the team worked methodically to stabilize the ship. They attached support lines and braces, ensuring that the hull would not collapse during the recovery. Ilias inspected every mechanical component he could reach, carefully cleaning and documenting them. He noticed that some of the gears and pulleys were exceptionally well crafted, designed to withstand strain and movement in ways he had not seen in any modern machine. It was as if the ship itself had been engineered with a knowledge lost to time. As the day progressed, Ilias felt a strange sense of connection to the ship. He imagined the sailors who had once walked its decks, hauling ropes, raising sails, and steering through storms. He thought of the captain, perhaps giving orders during a thunderous gale, and the artisans who had carved the intricate designs along the hull. History was not just a story here. It was tangible, present in every beam, every gear, every metal fitting. But there were also signs of mystery. In one corner of the lower deck, Ilias found a small, enclosed room that seemed out of place. The door was reinforced with iron, and inside were several strange mechanisms that did not resemble anything he had seen in other medieval ships. Tiny cogs, levers, and a partially broken wheel suggested some sort of early machine, perhaps related to navigation or cargo handling, but it was unlike anything recorded in historical documents. Ilias could not hide his fascination. He carefully sketched the components in his notebook, noting measurements and materials. He could feel that this ship had more secrets than anyone had imagined. By mid-afternoon, the team had mapped most of the visible sections of the ship. They returned to the surface to review their findings. In the sunlight, Ilias could finally relax, though only slightly. His mind was buzzing with plans for the next dive. He discussed strategies with Dr. Sofia Almeida, who was equally fascinated by the unusual mechanisms. "Ilias, these components could change what we know about engineering in the 14th century, she said. "If these are truly functional, they predate similar mechanisms by hundreds of years." Ilias nodded. "It's incredible," he replied. "We have to be extremely careful. One mistake and centuries of history could be lost." That night, Ilias could not sleep. He lay awake in his small cabin aboard the support vessel, thinking about the ship. He replayed every moment of the dive in his mind. The feel of the wood, the shine of the metal, the strange mechanisms that hinted at knowledge long forgotten. He wondered who had built the ship, why it had been lost, and what stories lay hidden in its cargo and compartments. The thought of discovering something that no one had seen for 7 centuries filled him with awe and a quiet fear. The following day, Elias returned to the ship with a renewed sense of purpose. He began exploring the hold more thoroughly, moving carefully among the barrels and crates. Some contained everyday supplies like grains, ropes, and cloth, but others held items that suggested trade or craftsmanship, including finely wrought metal tools, pottery, and delicate carvings. He examined each item, noting its condition and potential historical significance. Every discovery seemed to raise more questions than it answered. Then, deep in the bowels of the ship, Elias found it, a small, compact device partially hidden beneath a collapsed beam. At first glance, it looked like a simple mechanism, but as he cleaned it, he realized it was far more complex. Tiny gears interlocked with precision, and intricate markings covered the surface. Elias could not identify its purpose. He turned it over in his hands, feeling the weight and craftsmanship. Whoever had built this had possessed knowledge far beyond what had been thought possible for the period. Elias' mind raced. Could this device have been part of the ship's navigation system? Or was it a cargo-related mechanism? Perhaps it had some ceremonial purpose. He carefully wrapped it and placed it in a protective container for study back on the surface. Every fiber of his being told him this was significant, but he also sensed a responsibility. Some secrets were not meant to be disturbed recklessly. As the dive continued, Elias noticed subtle signs that the ship had endured more than just the passage of time. Certain beams showed stress fractures, and some sections had shifted under pressure. He realized that any recovery operation would need to be slow, methodical, and extremely precise. There was no room for error. The thought weighed heavily on him, but he also felt a thrill. This was not just mechanical work. It was history in motion, a dance between past and present, and he was at the center of it. By the end of the day, Elias and the team had made significant progress. They had stabilized the main sections of the hull and cataloged the visible mechanical components. Yet the mysteries of the ship remained. That compact device, in particular, lingered in Elias' mind. Its design suggested knowledge and skill that should not have existed at that time. He knew that understanding it could take months, if not years, and he was both anxious and excited about the possibilities. As he rested that evening, Elias reflected on the deeper meaning of his work. He was not just repairing machines or salvaging a ship. He was touching history, connecting with people who had lived centuries before him. He realized that the ship's story was intertwined with human curiosity, ingenuity, and ambition. Every beam, every gear, every artifact told a story, and it was his responsibility to honor it. That night, Elias could not help but imagine the ship's original journey. He pictured the crew setting sail, their faces determined, their hands steady on the ropes and tiller. He imagined storms that tested their courage, moments of joy and camaraderie, and the challenges of navigating unknown seas. The ship had endured, resting silently under the waves for centuries, and now, finally, it was awakening once more. And as Elias prepared for the next day's dive, he knew one thing for certain. The 700-year-old ship held secrets far beyond his understanding, and every discovery would challenge what he knew about history, technology, and human creativity. Elias Romero had never felt a sense of awe like this before. The previous dives had revealed much, but today promised something different. He had spent the past few days carefully documenting and stabilizing the ship, but one compartment remained largely untouched, a sealed chamber near the ship's stern. The divers had tried to open it before, but centuries of pressure and corrosion had fused the hatch shut. Elias examined the mechanism closely. The hatch was reinforced with bronze fittings, etched with tiny, intricate symbols that he did not recognize. It was a puzzle, a challenge, and a temptation all at once. He signaled to the team above water. "We need to take it slow. This hatch may be centuries old, but it's holding something important. One wrong move, and we risk destroying everything inside." The divers descended carefully, bringing specialized tools designed for precision underwater work. Elias positioned himself at the hatch, feeling the familiar hum of excitement mixed with apprehension. He had worked on complicated modern machines, but nothing compared to the delicate balance required here. This was history, frozen in time, and it was his hands that would awaken it. Hours passed as they worked methodically. The hatch resisted every attempt, its ancient metal holding firm against modern tools. Elias wiped sweat from his brow under the diving mask, his eyes never leaving the complex mechanism. Slowly, with patience and precision, the bronze fittings began to loosen. The moment was tense, and even the divers seemed to hold their breath. Finally, with a faint click, the hatch shifted, allowing a small opening. Elias shone his light inside. Dust and silt swirled in the water, but beyond it lay an array of objects that seemed untouched by time. Small chests lined the walls, each one sealed carefully. Strange instruments, mechanical devices, and bundles of parchment floated in protective cases. The air of mystery was palpable, almost as if the ship had been guarding its secrets for centuries, waiting for someone worthy enough to find them. As Elias began to inspect the objects, he focused on a peculiar device tucked in a corner. At first, it seemed like a compact mechanism, much like the one he had found previously. But as he cleaned it, he noticed it was far more sophisticated. Tiny cogs interlocked with perfect precision, levers moved with effortless grace, and delicate markings covered the surface. Elias turned it over in his hands, mesmerized. Whoever had built this device had a knowledge and skill far beyond what had been expected in the 14th century. He carefully tested its movement. To his astonishment, it appeared functional. A small gear turned another in perfect synchronization, causing a hidden compartment to slide open. Inside was a small parchment, brittle with age but surprisingly well preserved. Elias unrolled it gently, revealing a series of diagrams and notes. They were mechanical instructions, showing designs for mechanisms that resembled early forms of automata, devices that could move or perform tasks on their own. Elias' heart raced. This was not merely a shipwreck. It was a treasure of knowledge, a window into engineering genius that had been lost for centuries. He realized the implications. If these designs were authentic, they could rewrite what historians knew about technological advancement in the medieval era. Yet, along with excitement came a sense of caution. Such knowledge, misused or misunderstood, could be dangerous. As he continued to explore the chamber, he noticed something even stranger. Among the chests and mechanical devices were symbols etched into the wood and metal, symbols that glowed faintly when illuminated by his light. Elias stared in disbelief. He had never seen anything like it in any historical record. Was it decoration, a form of communication, or something more? He took careful photographs and sketches, determined to document everything. While examining the hold, Elias became aware of the fragility of the ship. Some beams groaned under pressure, and parts of the lower deck had shifted slightly over the centuries. He realized that every move, every touch, could have consequences. He communicated with the surface team to adjust supports and reinforce vulnerable areas. The recovery had become more than a mechanical task. It was a delicate dance, balancing preservation with exploration. By mid-afternoon, Elias had cataloged most of the chamber's contents. Among them were items that suggested trade, craftsmanship, and perhaps even experimentation. Small glass vials, finely wrought metal tools, and wooden models of gears and wheels hinted at a mind that had been both creative and meticulous. It became clear to Elias that the ship's original crew, or perhaps a single visionary aboard, had possessed an understanding of mechanics that was centuries ahead of its time. Yet, the deeper he went into the chamber, the more uneasy he felt. There was an almost imperceptible energy about the place, a quiet tension that seemed to emanate from the mechanisms themselves. He shook the thought away, reminding himself that he was a mechanic, not a mystic. Machines had logic. They followed rules. They could be understood. But this logic, hidden for 700 years, was unlike any he had encountered. Elias decided to take a break and return to the surface. Once aboard, he carefully laid out the objects for preliminary examination. Doctor. Almeida and a few other experts joined him, their eyes wide with wonder. Elias, these mechanisms, they're extraordinary, she said. We may be looking at designs that predate anything else known by centuries. He nodded, still trying to process it himself. And functional, he added quietly. These aren't just models or experiments. They were built to work. Someone wanted them to move, to perform tasks, to achieve something. But what? Over the next several days, Elias returned to the ship multiple times. Each dive revealed more secrets. Small compartments opened to reveal bundles of parchment, more devices, and intricate carvings that suggested careful thought and planning. He documented everything meticulously, photographing, measuring, and cataloging each discovery. The deeper he explored, the more it became apparent that this ship was not merely a vessel of transport. It was a floating laboratory, a repository of knowledge, and perhaps even a prototype of technologies that would not appear again for centuries. One afternoon, while examining the lower deck near the stern, Elias discovered a sealed metal box embedded in the ship's frame. Unlike anything he had seen before, it was covered in symbols similar to those in the chamber. With careful hands, he pried it open. Inside was a small device, almost like a clock, with gears and levers arranged in a pattern too precise to be accidental. When he moved one lever, another part shifted, and a hidden compartment revealed itself, containing additional notes and diagrams. Elias studied the contents in awe. The diagrams showed mechanisms that could measure, calculate, and even automate certain tasks. They were advanced, intricate, and elegant. He realized that whoever had built these devices had an understanding of mechanics that rivaled modern knowledge. The implications were staggering. He could not imagine how such designs had been created without the tools and theories we now take for granted. As he worked, Elias began to sense the weight of responsibility. This knowledge had survived centuries underwater, untouched and hidden. If it were revealed carelessly, it could be misinterpreted or misused. He felt a quiet resolve. He would document, preserve, and protect these discoveries. The ship had entrusted him with its secrets, and he could not fail. But the deeper he delved, the more questions arose. Why had these devices been on the ship? Were they part of the cargo, or had someone aboard been experimenting in secret? And most importantly, had these mechanisms played a role in the ship's mysterious sinking? The thought made Elias pause. For centuries, the ship had lain undisturbed, and now its secrets were being uncovered. Every answer seemed to lead to more questions, and the line between history and mystery blurred. During one dive, Elias noticed a small compartment near the stern that had been overlooked. It was hidden behind a series of beams and required careful maneuvering to reach. Inside, he discovered something that made his pulse quicken, a device resembling the first mechanical computer he had read about in historical texts. Tiny gears, pins, and wheels were arranged with extraordinary precision. When he carefully moved one component, another shifted in perfect synchronization. He realized that this was not merely a decorative mechanism. It was functional, a machine capable of performing calculations or tasks in ways that were centuries ahead of its time. Elias carefully photographed and documented the device, aware that it might be the most significant discovery of his career. Its complexity was astonishing, and yet it was beautifully simple in its design. Whoever had built it had thought deeply about function, efficiency, and precision. Elias could not help but feel a sense of reverence. This was more than history, it was genius preserved through time. As the days went on, Elias and the team worked tirelessly. They reinforced weak areas of the ship, carefully removed sediment, and stabilized the artifacts. Every dive was painstaking, every movement deliberate. Yet despite the labor, there was a growing sense of wonder among the team. They were not merely recovering a ship. They were touching the mind of a brilliant engineer from a distant past. And as Elias prepared for the next dive, he knew that the ship still held more secrets, waiting silently in the dark. Each discovery brought answers, but also new questions. The deeper he went, the more he realized that history was not just a record of events. It was a living puzzle, full of ingenuity, mystery, and human ambition. Elias Romero had begun to understand that this ship was more than a vessel lost to time. It was a testament to human curiosity, a challenge to modern understanding, and a reminder that the past still had much to teach those willing to listen. And as he descended once more into the cold, dark depths, he felt a mix of excitement and caution. The 700-year-old ship had secrets still hidden, and Elias was determined to uncover them, carefully, respectfully, and with the awe they deserved. Elias Romero felt a mixture of excitement and responsibility as he prepared for what could be the final phase of the mission. Weeks of dives, discoveries, and careful documentation had led the team to this point. The 700-year-old ship had revealed many of its secrets, from intricate mechanical devices to delicate manuscripts, but there were still mysteries hidden in its deepest compartments. Elias knew that any mistake now could undo months of work and destroy centuries of history. The morning air was cool and crisp as the team gathered on the deck of the support vessel. The sea sparkled under the early sunlight, and the waves lapped gently against the hull. Divers checked their gear for the final time, engineers prepared lifting and stabilization equipment, and historians carefully organized the recovered artifacts. Elias went through his own checklist, making sure every tool, every measuring device, and every protective container was ready. "Are we ready, Elias?" asked Dr. Sophia Almeida, her voice calm but filled with anticipation. "Ready as we'll ever be," Elias replied, taking a deep breath. "Let's make history carefully." Descending into the water, Elias felt the familiar pressure of the ocean as he approached the ship. He paused for a moment, taking in the view. The hull was massive, elegant even after centuries of being submerged. Sunlight filtered through the water, illuminating the carvings and metal fittings, creating a dreamlike scene. Elias felt a profound respect for the ship and its builders. This was more than a wreck. It was a testament to human ingenuity, preserved through time. He moved carefully toward the stern, where the deepest compartments still awaited exploration. The previous dives had revealed most of the ship's mechanical devices and artifacts, but Elias had a sense that the ship held one final secret. The air of mystery seemed stronger here, almost tangible. He signaled to the divers to assist in clearing sediment and debris around a small reinforced hatch that had resisted all attempts to open it. Hours passed as they worked methodically. Every movement had to be precise, every tool used with care. Elias' hands moved steadily, his mind focused on the task. The hatch was stubborn, fused by centuries of pressure, but he finally managed to loosen the bronze fittings. With a soft click, the hatch gave way, revealing a hidden compartment. The water around them swirled as silt and dust rose, making the scene feel even more surreal. Inside, Elias found something extraordinary. A set of mechanical devices, far more intricate than any he had seen, were carefully arranged in the compartment. Tiny gears, levers, and wheels were interconnected with precise alignment, forming a complex system that seemed almost alive. Elias' eyes widened as he examined the mechanisms. Whoever had built these devices had a knowledge of mechanics far beyond what had been expected for the 14th century. Among the devices lay a small, sealed chest. Elias carefully pried it open, revealing bundles of parchment and a small metal object. The parchment contained detailed diagrams, schematics, and notes, instructions for constructing devices that could perform complex tasks automatically. Elias realized that these were designs for machines that had no known equivalent in history until centuries later. The implications were staggering. This ship was not merely a vessel of trade or transport. It had carried knowledge that could have changed the course of technological development. Elias handled the small metal object with extreme care. It was a compact device, resembling a primitive clockwork mechanism, but with a level of sophistication that suggested it had a purpose far beyond telling time. He moved some of the gears gently, and to his amazement, a hidden compartment opened, revealing a tiny, fragile manuscript. The writing was faded but legible, detailing experiments, observations, and designs. Elias understood that this was the work of a brilliant mind, preserved for centuries in the depths of the ocean. As he studied the manuscript, Elias felt a mix of excitement and responsibility. This knowledge was incredible, but it was also delicate. The ship had protected these secrets for centuries, and now it was up to him and the team to preserve them. He carefully documented everything, taking photographs, sketches, and notes. Each discovery was recorded in meticulous detail, ensuring that nothing would be lost. The team continued to stabilize the ship, while Elias focused on the mechanical devices. He realized that some of the mechanisms could be restored, at least partially, without damaging their historical integrity. Using his expertise, he carefully cleaned and adjusted the gears, testing their movement. To his delight, some of the devices still functioned. Tiny gears turned smoothly, levers moved with precision, and hidden compartments opened exactly as designed. It was a remarkable demonstration of the skill and knowledge of the ship's builders. While examining one of the larger devices, Elias noticed a faint glow coming from small symbols etched into the metal. He shined his light on them and saw that they were not merely decorative. They seemed to indicate a sequence of movements, a set of instructions for operating the mechanism. Elias felt a thrill of discovery. The device was not just a relic, it was a functional machine, a puzzle waiting to be solved. He carefully followed the sequence, moving gears and levers in the order suggested by the symbols. Slowly, the mechanism came to life, revealing another hidden compartment with additional parchment and a small, intricately crafted key. Elias realized that the key might unlock another secret within the ship. He signaled to the divers to assist in locating a corresponding lock. After searching the lower deck, they found a small, reinforced door partially hidden by beams and debris. Elias inserted the key, and with a soft click, the lock released. The door opened to reveal a small chamber containing several more devices and manuscripts. The room seemed almost like a laboratory, carefully organized and preserved. It was clear that the ship's original crew, or perhaps a single visionary aboard, had used this space to experiment and innovate. The significance of the discovery was not lost on Elias. These devices represented knowledge and creativity that had been lost for centuries, preserved in the depths of the ocean by the ship itself. He felt a deep respect for the builders and the crew, recognizing the risks they had taken and the dedication they had shown. Every artifact, every device, and every manuscript was a testament to human ingenuity and curiosity. As the team worked to recover and document the contents of the chamber, Elias began to reflect on the journey that had brought him here. Weeks of careful dives, meticulous documentation, and constant attention to detail had revealed the ship's secrets, but there was more than just history at stake. The experience had changed him. He had developed a profound respect for the past, for the skill and creativity of those who had come before, and for the responsibility of preserving knowledge for the future. By the end of the day, the team had successfully documented and stabilized the remaining compartments of the ship. The recovered artifacts were carefully stored in protective containers, ready to be transported for further study. Elias took a final look at the ship, now partially supported and reinforced for recovery. It lay quietly beneath the water, its secrets preserved but no longer hidden. He felt a mixture of pride, relief, and awe. They had succeeded in uncovering centuries of history, revealing knowledge and craftsmanship that had been lost to time. Back on the support vessel, Elias and the team reviewed their findings. Dr. Almeida was amazed by the quality and complexity of the mechanical devices. "This changes everything we know about medieval engineering," she said. "Elias, your work has been incredible. You've brought history back to life." Elias nodded, feeling a quiet satisfaction. "It's not just me," he replied. "Everyone on the team played a role." But yes, seeing these devices work, understanding the thought behind them, it's extraordinary. The recovered manuscripts and devices were carefully packed and sent for further study. Experts from around the world would examine them, unlocking more of their secrets and adding to humanity's understanding of history and technology. Elias knew that the work was far from over, but he also felt a sense of closure. The ship had revealed its secrets, and he had honored its legacy. In the days following the final recovery, Elias took some time to reflect on the experience. He thought about the crew who had built and sailed the ship centuries ago, about the genius of the individual or individuals who had created the mechanical devices, and about the journey that had led him to this point. He realized that history was not just a series of events recorded in books. It was alive, present in the objects, machines, and innovations left behind by those who had come before. Elias also reflected on his own growth. The mission had tested his skills, patience, and judgment. It had challenged him to think creatively, solve problems under pressure, and respect the fragility of history. He felt a deep sense of gratitude for the opportunity to be part of such a remarkable discovery. The experience had changed him, giving him a greater appreciation for the connection between past and present, and the responsibility of preserving knowledge for future generations. As the support vessel prepared to depart from the recovery site, Elias stood on the deck, looking out at the calm sea. The ship lay beneath the waves, partially stabilized, its secrets documented and preserved. He felt a sense of peace, knowing that the knowledge it contained would continue to inspire and educate people for generations to come. He thought about the journey ahead, the study of the manuscripts, the restoration of the mechanical devices, and the ongoing exploration of history through these discoveries. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The 700-year-old ship had revealed its secrets, and in doing so, it had changed his life. Elias Romero knew that he had been part of something extraordinary. He had touched history, uncovered lost knowledge, and witnessed the brilliance of human ingenuity preserved through centuries. The mission had tested him, challenged him, and ultimately transformed him. And as he looked back one last time at the ship, he felt a sense of wonder and gratitude. The ship had waited 700 years to be discovered, and now, finally, its story would be told. The journey had ended, but the legacy of the ship would continue, inspiring future generations to explore, create, and honor the ingenuity of those who came before. Elias knew that he would never forget this experience. The thrill of discovery, the weight of responsibility, and the quiet, enduring wisdom of a ship that had waited centuries to be understood. And as the vessel sailed toward the horizon, Elias felt a deep connection to history, to the people who had built the ship, and to the knowledge that had survived the test of time. He realized that some secrets were not meant to be hidden forever, and that the courage and curiosity of those willing to seek them could bring the past to life in ways no one could imagine.